One ring to rule them all. One ring to find them. One ring to bring them all. And in the darkness, fight them. This is the One Ring.
Hey folks, Dave here. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I'm an absolute sucker for Lord of the Rings. So when I found this Sauron figure, I knew that he was going to be my next project. This figure comes from Gambody, hashtag not a sponsor. And I haven't used them before, but I bought one of the models and 3D printed it off and started to assemble it. And I think it's going to look really good. There's a whole lot of detail in his armor and in his cloak and in his base that I think are going to really pop under the camera. Now, normally when I'm setting up a scene and I'm painting figures, I don't really have a great idea of what the colors of the figures are going to be when I paint them. I'm relatively new to the painting miniature game, and so I don't really have a great mental model of how all the paints kind of lie together and how they layer up to get the looks I do. I just kind of wing it and half-ass it, and generally things work out, but I don't really have a plan. But that's not the case with Sauron here. If you look at the movie stills for our Sauron, you'll notice that he has a very, very basic color scheme. He just has black cloak and gray armor, and that's it. The only color that's not gray or black is the yellow or the gold in the One Ring. Everything else is pretty much the same gray. And even with the model, it's the same gray through all of his armor. So there's not a whole lot of variation in there. So painting him up is going to be very simple. My plan is going to be to paint the robe black and then paint his armor in a gunmetal, which is a very dark grayish metallic paint. And that'll get him to the right kind of tones. And then I'm going to spray him with a matte or a satin clear coat. And what that's going to do is the matte or clear coat tends to really knock down the metallicness of paint and kind of just leaves the tone of the gray. So that'll basically just leave him with kind of a flat gray armor. And then once that's done, I'm going to go back and add some highlights just to the edges of all the plates of his armor with an actual metallic paint, which will kind of highlight all the details and features of the figure here. He has a lot of detail in his armor bits that are going to look really great under the camera lights. And really the magic of this photo, if it comes off the way it is in my head, it's going to be all about how the lights for the camera reflect off all the armor plating and the edges of the armor plating to bring out all those details. The other thing that I need to figure out is what type of hand structure or hand posing do I want him to have. This figure actually comes with several different options for hands. So I need to decide which ones I want to use for the photo. Luckily, they're easy to swap out, so I can decide once he's in front of the camera. So my plan for there is just to paint up all of the extra bits the exact same way, so I can just swap it out when I put him in front of the camera and get the optimum posing that I need. So once I have that done, I'll be able to figure out what I want to do with the base ground here, and then the rest should just be lights and some Photoshop magic. So the first step is to get this guy painted up, so let's get to it. All right, we have one completed Sauron, and I think it's looking pretty darn good. As expected, it is a fairly simple paint job. I did add some extra washes to it to give it that old armor look. Sauron's like thousands of years old, so a bit of weathering in his armor is expected. But otherwise, the paint job went down pretty much as I expected, so that's a bonus. One thing that did change, though, is that I ended up gluing on the arms. I was going to leave the arms free so I could swap them out in camera and kind of see what my favorite look was. But it turned out the arms were not sticking very well. And I'm not 100% sure why, but I believe the reason is that when I scaled up this model to the size it is, this model is like 130% bigger than the digital files that I used to print it. And when I scale it up, you're also scaling up the tolerances between the parts by also 130%, which just means that the parts don't quite fit together as well as you'd expect. So the arms were kind of floppy and they had a tendency to fall off, and that was just going to be darn annoying. So I just decided to make a command decision and go with the configuration that I thought I was probably going to go with anyways. Just glued it down just so it's done and I don't have to worry about it. And it'll save my sanity when I get to the shooting part of this exercise. And the last thing that I did was when I painted the base, I used dirt as a covering for this base to give it a dirt look. I kind of like using real life dirt when it comes to weathering things because nothing looks like dirt more than dirt, right? So I have this base covered in dirt. And it has another benefit in that I'm going to have to put something here to kind of fill out this space. Otherwise, it's just going to be empty space and it's not going to look right in camera. So I'm going to need a ground here. But because I use this dirt, I don't need to build out a diorama that is just more dirt. All I can do is just pour down some more dirt. So this is my diorama. This is the bag of garden soil that I use to get this dirt from. And so when I lay out this figure, I'm going to lay down a bunch of dirt and then stick this guy on top of it. And then this should look like this scene is a lot larger and wider than it is without actually having to do any extra work. So I'm ready to go for putting this in front of the camera. So I'm just going to get everything set up, get in front of the camera, start adding some lights and playing around with how I want everything lit up. And then from there, we'll jump into Photoshop and finish off this image. So let's get to it. Oh, hey, I got to interrupt this video for a little bit of shameless self-promotion. I wrote a book, this book. It's called From a Certain Point of View, A Guide to Miniature Photography. I've been doing YouTube for about 2 years, but I've been doing miniature photography and toy photography for a whole lot longer than that. And I put all the knowledge that I've gained into this book right here. So if you're interested in knowing what I do and how I make the photos that I do, everything from how to think up of ideas, how to pick the models that you shoot, how to light it, how to photograph it, all those things are all in this book right here. So if you're interested in learning a bit more about what I do, it's available on Amazon.com right now. Pick up this book. Well, not this book. This is like the author's copy, but on Amazon, you get the real one. So go check it out. Link in the description below. All right, back to the video. All right, there you go. One Sauron image finished. He really did look good in front of the camera, and I'm really pleased with the result. So that's it for me for this time. If you like what you see here, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.